Oh, welcome back to High School to the Max. Time for tonight's feature story. What three members of the Holy Cross football team went through late this offseason is something no young man should have to endure. But in turning to their other family, these brave knights, inspired by memories and brotherhood, managed to move forward.
Good Friday evening and welcome to the start of the 2012 high school football season.
The beginning of a new year on live TV against their big rival. Hard to imagine a better way to kick things off for Holy Cross, until you take into account an August and July that were hard to imagine.
There were a lot of times at practice, and this sounds bad, I am very passionate about the game of football. I love coaching football. But there were moments at practice you're like going, is this really what we should be doing? Is this really this important?
That night that I didn't go visit him because I think I had to do a paper or something. He passed away.
They put her on a ventilator, because she couldn't breathe on her own. And we had to make the decision probably, 2 days after that.
I had heard my mom yelling downstairs, so I kind of got up. And then she yelled at me to call my family members, tell them my dad's not doing so well.
Gutted me. Ripped my absolute heart out.
In the month leading up to the season, three members of the Holy Cross football team each lost a parent. Suddenly.
It was overwhelming. Once you feel terrible. The second time you're like, this is not fair, this is wrong, The third time it just rips your heart out.
Back in late July, with coaches meetings scheduled to start in the next week, offensive assistant Brian Ortiz was set for one last off-season getaway when he got a phone call.
I was supposed to go to the coast that weekend, and my dad called and said, hey, Mom wasn't doing too good, so come in the morning so we can call the doctor and see what's going on before you head out. So I said, okay. So I got there early in the morning, and I walked in at the right time, and she was having a stroke right as soon as I walked in, so my dad was panicking, and I had to tell him, go, call 911, and I didn't think she was going to make it past there.
Linda Ortiz, at the age of 59, died several days later. At right around that same time, Holy Cross receiver Zach Fernandez was looking after his dad, Bobby, a strong, fit physical therapist who thought he'd come down with a case of walking pneumonia. A visit to the doctor revealed a much different diagnosis: leukemia. 3 days later, Bobby Fernandez died in the early morning hours.
For some reason I knew he passed away at 3:55, and I woke up at 3:45 and went to my mom's room. Or when I got to my mom's room, they had called, and my stepmom, she talked to my mom and said he had passed, and I heard, so I drove. I just went straight to the hospital, and I was pretty much in shock. I didn't know what to do.
Fall practices started 3 days later, and among the coaches there was Chris Medina, a 1976 Holy Cross graduate who'd remained a big part of the program ever since. His son Javi is now the team's kicker. On the Sunday before the season's first game, 53-year-old Chris fell ill suddenly. He was rushed to the hospital, where he died that day.
I kind of thought, shouldn't I be sad, shouldn't I be crying, shouldn't I be doing as worse as everybody else? And I kind of thought, I don't know why. I wanted to be as sad as they were, and I still do. I still see my mom that way, and I still see plenty of my family members that way, but maybe it'll come to me, or it'll hit me after a few more weeks or so.
Loved ones now gone, Javi, Zach, and Coach Brian Ortiz turned to their other family. None missed any practice time. Their parents wouldn't have wanted that, each says, though football only provided so much of a distraction.
I asked my mom, when's Dad coming home? And of course, I had easily forgotten because I was kept so busy to keep my mind off of things I had forgotten. And my poor mom, that's probably something she didn't want to hear.
Last week I called my dad just because I saw a movie preview, and my dad and I always watch movies, always would go to the movies. And I saw a movie preview, and I called him to ask what he'd think about it, and I just went straight to voicemails. I didn't know what to think after that.
I know how I was feeling. I'm a lot older than them, you know, and I could imagine, you know, what they were going through. You know, their dad's not going to be there for, you know, that last senior game, you know, that last prom, that last, you know, things like that. You know, they're not going to be there.
At least on 2 instances where I was just angry for no reason, and the coaches understood and let me go sit on the sidelines. I just was thinking, why am I here? I stayed and kept practicing and did what I needed to do.
It's that attitude and spirit that allowed the Knights to move forward. Because 5 days after dealing with tragedy for a third time in less than a month, they were set to start the regular season. Was there any part of you that thought, maybe it's worth making a phone call and saying, I don't know if we're ready to play on Friday night. I don't know if we can do this, given what we've gone through.
I get where you're going. I really do. The answer is no. Because if I had called Central Catholic and said, hey, we just can't play, we're just not ready, it's too much, Chris would have come back and killed me. He would have not accepted that. None of the people that passed would have accepted that. I will tell you this, it was very difficult.
Every game, after I'd come make a big play, come back and look for my dad to just see his face, or to give me a thumbs up. That's the only reason I ever worked hard, or that's why I play hard.
Did you find yourself doing that after your first big play in that Central game?
I did. I'd scan the crowd, but didn't find anybody.
Zach made several big plays that night, and Holy Cross got off to a fast start before needing a late score and maybe a little help from above.
In the final minute of the game, when we're driving, we throw a pass, it hits one of our receivers' hands, ricochets off his hands. There was a Central kid closing on the ball that would have, if the ball had not ricocheted, I'm not sure he wouldn't have picked it off. The ball ricochets off his hands, goes right over the Central Catholic kids' heads, lands in another receiver's hands, and we wind up gaining about 20 yards off the play. You know, it's almost that immaculate reception type mentality. You're like, wow.
The Holy Bowl is over.
Following Holy Cross's 37-32 victory, the Knights celebrated in a way that's part of the school's culture, ingrained in its way of life.
My brothers, the boys on the field, they awarded me the game ball. It was something unique and special because at the hospital that Sunday morning, you know, they all showed up.
You have to go out there, you have to do it for your brothers, because they're going to do everything for you.
They're all like my brothers.
I've coached in public schools and I've coached in private schools, and Holy Cross is more of a family than I've ever seen. I've never seen relationships like this.